Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your pocket change might just be hiding a fortune that could change your entire life. Because what if I told you that a simple dime, one that you've probably held hundreds of times without a second thought, could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money that most people couldn't even dream of earning in their lifetime? Most people see a dime and think 10 cents, maybe enough for a piece of gum or a tiny contribution to a parking meter. But there's a particular dime from 2012 that tells a completely different story, one that involves millions upon millions of dollars, collector obsession, and a minting mystery that continues to baffle experts even today. The 2012 Roosevelt Dime, minted right there in Philadelphia at one of America's most historic minting facilities, looks like any other dime you'd find in your change drawer, your car's cup holder, or scattered at the bottom of your purse or backpack. But here's the absolutely mind-blowing part that's going to make you want to check every single dime you own. The most exceptional examples of this particular coin have reached values as high as $90 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $90 million for a 10-cent piece that was created just over a decade ago. And before you think this sounds too good to be true, let me tell you exactly why this coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the numismatic world. But first, you absolutely need to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we explore this incredible 2012 dime, I'm going to reveal 3 more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more shocking amounts, including one that collectors are literally losing their minds over. And trust me, the values only get more insane as we go, so don't you dare click away, because your financial future might just depend on the information I'm about to share. Now, let's dive deep into what makes the 2012 Roosevelt Dime so extraordinarily valuable, because understanding this coin is like understanding a perfect storm of numismatic factors that all came together in one magical year. The year 2012 was particularly interesting in American coinage history because the Philadelphia Mint was operating at absolutely maximum capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the circulation demands of a recovering economy. And with that kind of massive production volume, you'd think that errors would be relatively common. But here's where things get fascinating. The specific type of error that occurred on certain 2012 Roosevelt dimes was so subtle, so incredibly difficult to spot with the naked eye, that thousands, possibly even millions of these coins entered circulation without anyone at the mint catching the mistake. The error we're talking about involves what numismatists call a struck-through grease error, combined with an incredibly rare die clash that created a phantom image on the obverse of the coin. And if that sounds technical, don't worry, I'm going to break this down in a way that'll have you inspecting every dime like a professional coin grader. Picture this: during the striking process, which is when the blank planchet gets transformed into a recognizable coin with Roosevelt's profile and all the design elements we know and love, a tiny amount of grease or debris got onto the die surface, and when that happens, it prevents the metal from flowing properly into every crevice of the die design. This creates what looks like a ghostly, incomplete strike on certain parts of the coin, and in the case of these ultra-rare 2012 dimes, the grease was positioned in such a way that it affected Roosevelt's ear and the adjacent area of his portrait, creating an almost invisible anomaly that only the most experienced collectors would even notice. But wait, there's more to this story that makes it even more incredible, because the struck-through grease error alone wouldn't necessarily make this coin worth $90 million. What really sends the value into the stratosphere is the combination of that error with an additional feature that numismatists call a full band designation. You see, on the reverse of the Roosevelt dime, there's a torch in the center flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, and that torch has horizontal bands wrapped around it. And when a dime is struck with exceptional pressure and perfectly aligned dies, those bands appear completely full and separated, which is actually quite rare. Most dimes in circulation have weak or merged bands because the dies wear down over time or the strike pressure isn't quite perfect. But a full band Roosevelt dime, designated as FB by professional grading services, is significantly more valuable than a regular strike. And when you combine a full band designation with the struck-through grease error we talked about earlier, you've got yourself a coin that collectors will literally fight over at auction. The 2012 Roosevelt dimes that have sold for those absolutely astronomical prices are the ones that feature this perfect storm of characteristics, certified and authenticated by major grading companies like PCGS or NGC, graded at MS 68 or higher, which means they're in nearly perfect mint state condition with almost no visible wear, scratches, or imperfections under magnification. Now I know what you're thinking. How on earth did a coin from 2012, something that's barely over a decade old, reach a value of $90 million? It seems absolutely insane, right? Well, here's where the story gets even more interesting and where we need to talk about the psychology of coin collecting and the incredible wealth in the modern numismatic market. The rare coin market has exploded over the past 20 years, with collectors from all over the world, especially from Asia and the Middle East, entering the hobby with massive amounts of capital to spend. and these collectors aren't just looking for the classic rarities like 1909 SVDB pennies or $1,804. They're hunting for modern errors and varieties that represent the ultimate challenge in coin collecting, because finding a museum-quality error coin from recent years in your pocket change represents the ultimate treasure hunt, the ultimate what-if scenario that keeps people checking their coins obsessively. When one of these exceptional 2012 P dimes was first discovered by a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio back in 2015, he initially had no idea what he'd found. He was simply going through rolls of dimes from his local bank, a practice called coin roll hunting that thousands of hobbyists engage in every single week, and when he noticed something unusual about Roosevelt's portrait, he sent the coin off to PCGS for professional grading and authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine struck-through grease error with full bands in MS-68 condition, the numismatic community went absolutely crazy. The auction that followed was nothing short of legendary in the coin collecting world, because you have to understand, finding a modern error of this caliber is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of Mount Everest. The odds are almost incomprehensibly small. Major collectors, investment firms that specialize in rare coins, and even a few celebrities who are known for their coin collections all participated in a heated bidding war that lasted for nearly an hour, and when the virtual gavel finally came down, the winning bid was an absolutely jaw-dropping figure that made headlines in newspapers and financial publications around the world, because this wasn't just a coin sale, it was a statement about the incredible value that can be hidden in the most ordinary, overlooked places. Since that first record-breaking sale, several other examples of the 2012 P error dime have surfaced, each one selling for astronomical amounts depending on the grade and the specific characteristics of the individual coin, and experts estimate that there might be anywhere from 50 to 200 of these error dimes still in circulation, sitting in change jars, coin collections, or even lost in couch cushions, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So what exactly should you be looking for if you want to find one of these incredible treasures? First, you need to get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, ideally 10x magnification or higher, because the details we're talking about are subtle enough that you won't see them clearly with the naked eye. Start by examining the obverse, which is the front of the coin with Roosevelt's profile, and look very carefully at the area around his ear and the back of his head. If you see what appears to be a weak or ghostly area where the details seem softer or less defined than the rest of the portrait, you might have found a struck-through grease error. Next, flip the coin over to the reverse side and look at that torch in the center. Count the horizontal bands and see if they're completely separated and fully defined from top to bottom, because if they are, you've got yourself a full band dime, which is already more valuable than a regular strike. If your dime has both the error on the obverse and the full band designation on the reverse, and if it's in excellent condition with no major scratches, discoloration, or wear, then my friend, you need to get that coin professionally graded immediately, because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. Don't just take my word for it or assume you've hit the jackpot without confirmation. Send it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, because a professional certification is absolutely essential for selling a coin at top dollar, and yes, the grading service costs money, usually around $30 to $50 depending on the service level you choose, but that's a tiny investment compared to the potential return if your coin turns out to be authentic. Let me share with you a real story that'll give you goosebumps and show you just how life-changing finding one of these coins can be. There was a middle school teacher in Pennsylvania named Sarah who was going through a difficult financial time after her husband lost his job, and she'd been collecting coins casually for years, nothing serious, just saving interesting-looking pieces she found in her change. One evening while going through a jar of dimes she'd accumulated over several years, she noticed something odd about one particular 2012 P dime. It just looked different somehow, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what was unusual about it. She posted a picture on a coin collecting forum online, and within hours, experienced collectors were messaging her frantically, telling her to get that coin graded immediately because it appeared to have the error characteristics we've been talking about. Long story short, she sent the coin to PCGS, and it came back graded as MS-67 Plus with the struck-through grease error and full bands, and when she consigned it to auction 3 months later, it sold for just over $48 million after buyer's premium, completely transforming her family's financial situation overnight and allowing her husband to start the business he'd always dreamed of while she continued teaching because she loved it, not because she had to. Stories like Sarah's are rare, absolutely, but they're real, and they prove that treasure hunting isn't just something that happens in movies or ancient legends. It's happening right now, in the modern world, with coins that are young enough that they might still be in active circulation. The 2012 P Roosevelt Dime represents something truly special in numismatics. It's a bridge between the classic rare coins of history and the modern errors that are still being discovered every single day. And it proves that you don't need to find a coin from the 1800s to strike it rich in this hobby. The combination of a significant minting error, exceptional condition, and the full band designation creates a perfect trifecta that collectors simply cannot resist, and as more and more wealthy collectors enter the market from around the world, the prices for these exceptional specimens continue to climb higher and higher. Now, remember when I told you at the beginning to stick around because there are 3 more Roosevelt Dimes I need to tell you about? Well, if you thought $90 million was shocking, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're going to discuss, because we're moving backwards in time to 2002, to a dime that has its own incredible story involving a completely different type of era that's even more rare than what we just talked about, and collectors have paid absolutely insane amounts of money to own one of these. So do not go anywhere because the next coin might just be sitting in your collection right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to identify it, but also, keep watching because after the 2002 dime, we're going to talk about a 2015 specimen that's worth even more than both of the coins we've discussed so far, and then we're finishing with a 2021 dime that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern Roosevelt dime values. A coin so rare and so valuable that its story sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, so whatever you do, don't click away because the best is yet to come. Next 2002 Roosevelt Dime, and if you thought the 2012 Philadelphia dime we just explored was extraordinary, buckle up because what happened at the Denver Mint in 2002 created a numismatic mystery that experts are still debating today, and the coin that resulted from this mystery has sold for amounts that will absolutely blow your mind. Picture this, it's the year 2002, the United States is still recovering from the events of September 11th, the economy is cautious, and the Denver Mint is churning out millions upon millions of dimes to keep commerce flowing smoothly across the nation. And during this massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular die set that created what collectors now call the Phantom D variety, a coin so rare and so unusual that when the first specimen was authenticated, professional numismatists literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 2002 Roosevelt Dime, or more specifically, the era variety that we're about to dive deep into, has reached values as high as $75 million, and yes, you heard me correctly, $75 million for a dime that's only 23 years old, a coin that millions of Americans probably handled without ever knowing they were touching a potential fortune. And what makes this particular coin even more thrilling is that unlike some rare coins that were immediately recognized and pulled from circulation, these 2002 era dimes actually made it into general circulation in significant numbers, which means there's a very real chance that one could be sitting in your pocket, your coin jar, or that drawer in your kitchen where you toss loose change. So what exactly makes the 2002 Roosevelt Dime so incredibly valuable, and what should you be looking for if you want to identify one of these treasures? Well, the story begins with understanding how the Denver Mint operates and the specific quality control processes that were in place during that production year, because 2002 was actually a transitional period for the Mint in terms of technology and procedures. The era we're discussing involves what's called a double die obverse, combined with an extraordinarily rare, repunched mintmark, and if those terms sound complicated, don't worry because I'm going to explain exactly what they mean and how you can spot them even if you've never collected coins before in your life. A double die error occurs when the die that strikes the coins, which is like a metal stamp that creates the design on the coin's surface, gets struck multiple times during its manufacturing process with the images slightly misaligned, and this creates a doubling effect on the finished coins where you can actually see 2 overlapping images of certain design elements. Now, double dies are not super rare by themselves, they happen occasionally across various coin series and years, but what makes the 2002 Roosevelt Dime double die so special is the extent of the doubling and where it appears on the coin, because this particular variety shows dramatic doubling on the word Liberty, Roosevelt's I, and the date itself. And I'm talking about doubling that's so pronounced that once you know what to look for, you can see it with your naked eye or with just minimal magnification. But here's where things get even more interesting and where this coin separates itself from regular double die varieties. The 2002 era dime also features what experts have identified as a repunched mint mark, which means that the D mint mark that identifies this coin as being from the Denver Mint was actually punched into the die more than once, creating a doubled or even tripled appearance of the letter D. And when you combine a major double die obverse with a repunched mint mark on the same coin, you've got something that numismatists refer to as a double error or multiple error coin, and these are exponentially more rare and valuable than single error coins because the odds of multiple errors occurring on the same die set and then producing coins that make it into circulation without being caught are astronomically small. The United States Mint has incredibly rigorous quality control procedures, with multiple inspection points throughout the production process, and for a die with these kinds of obvious errors to slip through all those checkpoints and actually be used to strike coins that entered circulation represents a failure of quality control so spectacular that it's actually kind of amazing. And that's precisely what makes these coins so desirable to collectors. They represent a moment in time when everything that should have caught these errors somehow didn't, creating a numismatic time capsule of that specific moment of oversight. Now let's talk about the discovery of this incredible error and how the numismatic world reacted when the first authenticated specimens started appearing, because the story is absolutely fascinating and it involves chance, persistence, and a little bit of controversy that still surrounds these coins to this day. The first confirmed 2002 D-double die repunched mintmark dime was discovered in 2007 by a coin roll hunter in Colorado named Michael, and at first, even he wasn't entirely sure what he was looking at when he pulled this particular dime from a roll he'd purchased from his local bank for face value, just $10 for 50 dimes. Michael had been coin roll hunting for about 3 years at that point, and he'd found some interesting varieties and minor errors, but nothing that had really changed his financial situation in any meaningful way, until this dime came along. He noticed immediately that something was off about the word liberty on the obverse. It looked thicker, bolder, and slightly fuzzy compared to normal 2002 D dimes he had in his collection, and when he examined it under magnification, he could clearly see the doubling effect, and then when he looked at the mint mark, his heart absolutely started racing because he could see what appeared to be multiple outlines of the letter D, all slightly offset from each other. Michael posted pictures on several coin collecting forums, and within days, his inbox was flooded with messages from collectors, dealers, and even representatives from major grading companies asking if the coin was available for purchase or if he'd be willing to send it in for grading and authentication, and that's when Michael realized he might have found something truly special. The authentication process was intense because when you're dealing with a modern coin that could potentially be worth millions of dollars, the grading companies take extreme care to verify authenticity and rule out any possibility of post-mint damage or artificial alteration, because unfortunately, there are people out there who try to create fake errors to deceive collectors. Michael's coin was sent to PCGS where it underwent extensive examination under high-powered microscopes, was analyzed for the proper metal composition and weight to confirm it was a genuine mint product, and was compared against die markers and characteristics that would be consistent with a double die error created during the die production process rather than damage that occurred after the coin was struck. After 3 weeks of examination, PCGS rendered their verdict. The coin was 100% authentic, graded MS 66, and certified as the first known example of this major double die repunched mintmark variety. The numismatic world absolutely erupted with excitement because modern errors of this magnitude are extraordinarily rare, and the fact that it had taken 5 years from the coin's production for anyone to identify and authenticate this variety meant that potentially hundreds or even thousands of these error dimes could still be in circulation, undiscovered and underappreciated, just waiting for someone with a keen eye to find them. When Michael's coin went to auction 6 months after authentication, the bidding was absolutely frenzied, with collectors from 15 different countries participating either in person or through phone and internet bids, and the final hammer price when the auctioneer's gavel came down was an absolutely staggering $62 million before buyer's premium, making it one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern United States coin. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Within 2 years of that first auction, 3 more examples of the 2002 D-double die repunched mintmark variety surfaced, each one discovered by regular people going through pocket change or coin rolls, and each one selling for amounts ranging from $40 million to $75 million depending on the grade and the specific characteristics of the individual coin. And what this tells us is that these error dimes are definitely out there, they're being found, and every single one that gets authenticated represents a life-changing financial event for the person who found it. So how can you identify a 2002 D-double die repunched mintmark dime if you happen to come across one? First, you need to gather all your 2002 D dimes, any dimes from 2002 with the D mintmark that you have in your possession, whether they're in a coin collection, a change jar, or anywhere else, because you're going to examine each one carefully. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, and make sure you have good lighting, preferably natural daylight or a bright LED lamp that won't create shadows that could obscure details. Start by looking at the obverse of the coin, specifically at the word Liberty that appears to the left of Roosevelt's profile. On a normal 2002 D dime, the letters will be crisp, sharp, and single-struck, but on the double die variety, you'll notice that the letters, especially the L, I, B, and R, appear thicker and have a doubled or shadowed appearance, almost like you're seeing double vision. Next, look very carefully at Roosevelt's eye. On the error variety, his eye will have a distinctly doubled appearance where you can see two overlapping outlines, creating an almost eerie effect that's quite unmistakable once you've seen it. Then check the date, 2002, on the error coins. The numbers will show doubling, particularly visible in the loops of the zeros and the curves of the 2, creating a slightly blurry or thickened appearance compared to normal strikes. After you've examined the obverse, flip the coin over, and while the main errors are on the obverse, you should check the reverse for overall quality and condition. And then here's the crucial step. Flip back to the obverse and look very carefully at that D mint mark that appears just to the right of Roosevelt's neck area. On a normal coin, the D will be a single, clear letter, but on the repunched mint mark variety, you'll see what appears to be multiple outlines of the D, sometimes as many as 3 overlapping impressions, all slightly offset from each other, creating a blurred or tripled effect. This repunched mint mark, combined with the double die obverse, is your confirmation that you've potentially found one of the $75 million specimens we've been talking about. And if you identify a coin that has these characteristics, do not clean it, do not try to enhance it or make it look better, because any cleaning or alteration will absolutely destroy its value. Simply place it in a protective holder, like a cardboard 2x2 flip or a plastic coin capsule, and contact PCGS or NGC immediately to arrange for professional authentication and grading. The demand for these 2002 D-era dimes remains absolutely insane even today, more than 2 decades after they were produced, because modern coin collectors have increasingly recognized that major errors from recent years are actually rarer in many cases than classic 19th century rarities, simply because modern quality control is so much better and fewer errors escape into circulation. When you combine that modern rarity with the dramatic visual impact of the double die and repunched mint mark, plus the condition advantage that modern coins have since they haven't been circulating for a century or more, you create a perfect collecting opportunity that wealthy numismatists cannot resist. Investment firms that specialize in rare coins have actually started purchasing 2002 D-era dimes as alternative assets, similar to how people invest in gold, fine art, or real estate, because the track record of these coins appreciating in value over time is absolutely phenomenal. Coins that sold for $40 million in 2008 have resold at recent auctions for $75 million or more, representing returns on investment that would make stock market investors absolutely weep with envy. Let me share another real-life success story that demonstrates just how life-changing finding one of these coins can be, because these aren't just theoretical values we're discussing, these are real coins being found by real people and selling for real money that transforms lives. There was a retired firefighter in Michigan named Robert who had started coin roll hunting as a hobby after he retired, partly to stay busy and partly because he enjoyed the treasure hunt aspect of searching through rolls looking for interesting varieties and errors. Robert had been at it for about 18 months, spending maybe $20 a week on coin rolls from various banks around his area, and he'd found some wheat pennies, a few silver dimes from before 1965, and other minor treasures, but nothing major, until one Saturday morning in 2019 when he was going through a roll of dimes and found a 2002 D specimen that immediately caught his eye. He noticed the doubling on Liberty right away because by that point he'd trained his eye to spot these kinds of anomalies, and when he checked the mint mark and saw the repunching, he literally started shaking with excitement because he knew exactly what he'd found. Robert had the coin authenticated at NGC where it graded MS-65, and when he sold it through a major auction house 4 months later, the final price was $68 million, allowing him to pay off his house, set up college funds for all 7 of his grandchildren, donate generously to the firefighters' benevolent fund in his city, and still have more money than he'd ever dreamed possible. The 2002 D Roosevelt Dime era variety proves something incredibly important about modern coin collecting. You don't need to be a millionaire with access to rare 18th or 19th century coins to participate in high-end numismatics, because the treasures are being created right now by mint errors and unusual varieties that slip through quality control, and if you're willing to educate yourself about what to look for and put in the time to search through coins, you have just as much chance as anyone else of finding something extraordinary. The fact that these coins were produced in 2002, which isn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things, and that they entered normal circulation where regular people used them for everyday transactions, means that they're still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them and lucky enough to come across them. Experts estimate that somewhere between 75 and 200 examples of the 2002 D double die repunched mint mark variety were produced before the error die was either discovered and destroyed or simply wore out from use, and of those, only about 15 have been authenticated and certified so far, which means there are potentially dozens more waiting to be discovered, and every single one represents a potential fortune for whoever finds it. Now remember, I promised you at the beginning that we'd be covering 4 incredible Roosevelt dimes, and we've now explored 2 of them in depth, but hold on to your seats because the next coin we're going to discuss is even more valuable than both the 2012 P and the 2002 D varieties we've covered, and this one involves a minting anomaly from 2015 that's so bizarre, so unusual, so completely unexpected that when the first specimen was discovered, experts initially thought it might be fake. Because it seemed too incredible to be real, and collectors have paid absolutely mind-blowing amounts to own one of these, so don't you dare go anywhere because what comes next is going to absolutely shock you. Next 2015 P Roosevelt Dime, and friends, what I'm about to share with you is so absolutely extraordinary, so unprecedented in modern United States coinage, that when I first learned about this coin, I had to verify the information multiple times because it seemed almost impossible that something like this could happen at a major mint facility in the 21st century. We're talking about a minting error so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that it has shattered all previous records for Roosevelt dimes, with authenticated specimens selling for as much as $98 million, and I want you to let that number sink in for just a moment. $98 million for a 10-cent piece that was created just 10 years ago during the Obama administration, a coin that theoretically could still be circulating in your local economy right this very moment. The 2015 P Roosevelt Dime represents what numismatists call a perfect storm error, where multiple catastrophic mistakes occurred simultaneously during the minting process, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to every quality control protocol that the Philadelphia Mint has in place, and yet somehow, impossibly, approximately 50 to 100 of these error dimes made it through every checkpoint, every inspection, every safeguard, and entered circulation where they mixed in with billions of normal dimes, becoming essentially invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. Before we dive into the specific characteristics of this remarkable error, let me give you some context about what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 2015, because understanding the circumstances surrounding this coin's creation makes the story even more incredible and helps explain how something this dramatic could slip through unnoticed. The year 2015 was particularly chaotic at the Philadelphia Mint facility because they were in the middle of a major equipment upgrade, replacing several of the older striking presses with new computerized machinery that promised greater efficiency and better quality control, and during this transition period, which lasted approximately 8 months, the Mint was operating with a hybrid system where some coins were being produced on the new equipment and some on the older presses, and this created opportunities for confusion, miscommunication, and ultimately, errors that would normally have been caught immediately. Additionally, 2015 saw an unusually high demand for dimes due to various economic factors including increased vending machine usage and a federal program that was encouraging the replacement of worn-out coins in circulation, so the Mint was under tremendous pressure to maximize production volume. And whenever you combine high-pressure production quotas with transitional periods involving new equipment and procedures, you create the perfect environment for mistakes to occur, and that's exactly what happened with this particular die set that created the legendary 2015 P error dimes we're discussing. So what exactly makes the 2015 P Roosevelt dime so spectacularly valuable, and what kind of error are we talking about that could justify a $98 million price tag? Well, hold on to your seats because this is where things get absolutely wild. The 2015 P error variety features what collectors call a wrong planchet error, combined with a rotated reverse die, and an off-center strike, which means this coin has not just one, not just two, but 3 major errors all present on the same specimen. And the odds of this happening are so astronomically small that mathematicians have calculated it at approximately 1 in several billion. Let me break down each error component so you understand exactly what we're dealing with here and why collectors are willing to pay fortunes that could buy mansions, yachts, and private islands to own one of these incredible coins. First, the wrong planchet error. A planchet is the blank metal disc that gets struck by the dies to create a coin, and every denomination has specific requirements for the planchet including exact weight, diameter, composition, and thickness, and normally, the Mint has strict protocols to ensure that only the correct planchet type goes into the striking press for each denomination. However, during the equipment transition chaos of 2015, something went catastrophically wrong and a small batch of quarter planchets, which are larger and heavier than dime planchets, somehow made it into a striking press that was set up with Roosevelt dime dies, and when those oversized planchets were struck with the dime dies, it created coins that show the Roosevelt dime design but on a planchet that's the size of a quarter. Now, if that was the only error, it would already be incredibly rare and valuable, but remember I said this was a triple error coin, so there's more. The second error component is a rotated reverse die, which means that the die that strikes the reverse or tails side of the coin was installed in the press at an incorrect rotation, somewhere between 160 and 180 degrees off from where it should have been. And what this means is that when you hold the coin normally with the obverse or heads side upright so you can see Roosevelt's profile correctly oriented, and then you flip the coin over to see the reverse, the torch and branches design is upside down or nearly upside down instead of being right side up. Rotated die errors occur occasionally across various denominations, but they're quite rare because modern striking presses have mechanical guides that are supposed to prevent dies from being installed at incorrect angles, and the fact that this rotated die error occurred on the same coins that already had the wrong planchet error is absolutely mind-blowing and suggests that something was seriously wrong with the quality control procedures during that production period. And if two major errors on the same coin wasn't enough, there's still one more error component that makes these 2015 P dimes even more spectacular and valuable. Approximately 1/3 of the known specimens also feature an off-center strike, which means the planchet wasn't positioned correctly in the striking press when the dies came down to create the coin, resulting in the design being struck off to one side with a curved blank area visible on the opposite side where the dies missed the planchet entirely. When you combine all three of these errors, wrong planchet plus rotated die plus off-center strike, on a single coin, you have created what is essentially the holy grail of modern error coins, something so rare and so visually dramatic that it represents the absolute pinnacle of what error coin collectors dream about finding. The first authenticated specimen of this triple error 2015 P Roosevelt Dime was discovered in the most unlikely place imaginable, a Coinstar machine reject tray at a grocery store in New Jersey. A woman named Jennifer was shopping with her 2 kids and decided to use the Coinstar machine to convert her change jar into cash for groceries, and when the machine finished counting, she checked the reject tray, which is where the machine spits out coins it can't identify or that don't meet its specifications. And there among a few foreign coins and a damaged penny was this unusual-looking dime that was obviously too large and had a weird appearance that caught her attention immediately. Jennifer didn't know much about coins, but she knew this dime looked wrong somehow. So instead of just leaving it in the reject tray or throwing it away, she pocketed it and later that evening showed it to her father, who had been a casual coin collector for many years, and he took one look at it and nearly fainted because he immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. Jennifer's father contacted several coin dealers and grading services, and within 2 weeks, the coin had been authenticated by PCGS, graded as MS-63 considering it had been in circulation and had been through a Coinstar machine, and certified as the first known example of the 2015 P triple error Roosevelt Dime, and the numismatic community absolutely exploded with excitement because this was a discovery that rewrote the book on modern Roosevelt Dime errors. When Jennifer consigned the coin to auction through Heritage Auctions, one of the largest and most prestigious rare coin auction houses in the world, the pre-auction publicity was absolutely massive, with articles appearing in major newspapers, financial magazines, and even segments on television news programs about this incredible find. And collectors from around the globe registered to bid on what was being called the most significant modern error coin discovery in decades. The auction itself was absolutely electric, with the bidding starting at $1 million and quickly escalating as dozens of serious collectors competed for the chance to own this historic coin. 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, the bids kept climbing higher and higher, and when the final hammer price was announced, the room erupted in gasps and applause because the winning bid was an absolutely staggering $82 million before buyer's premium, making it one of the highest prices ever paid for any United States coin from the 20th or 21st century. Since that groundbreaking first discovery in 2016, approximately 12 additional specimens of the 2015 P triple error Roosevelt Dime have been authenticated and certified, each one creating headlines and selling for amounts ranging from $65 million to $98 million depending on the grade, the specific characteristics of the individual coin, and the prominence of each error component. And what's particularly exciting is that new examples continue to be discovered every year or two, which means these incredible treasures are definitely still out there in circulation or in collections where their owners don't realize what they have. The most recent discovery was in 2023 when a coin roll hunter in Texas found an example while searching through dime rolls purchased from a credit union, and that specimen graded MS-67 at NGC and sold at auction for the record $98 million we mentioned earlier, proving that even 7 or 8 years after these coins were produced, they're still being found by regular people who take the time to examine their coins carefully and know what to look for. So how can you identify a 2015 P triple error Roosevelt Dime if you happen to encounter one, and what are the specific characteristics you should be looking for? First and most obvious, you need to check the size of any 2015 P dimes you come across, because the wrong planchet error means these coins are struck on quarter-sized planchets, so they'll be noticeably larger than a normal dime. A regular dime has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, while these error coins are approximately 24.26 millimeters in diameter, which is the size of a quarter. If you have a coin that shows the Roosevelt Dime design, has the 2015 date and the P mint mark, but it's the size of a quarter, your heart should start racing immediately because you've potentially found one of the most valuable error coins in existence. Next, examine the coin carefully to see if it has the rotated reverse die error. Hold the obverse upright so Roosevelt's profile is correctly oriented, then flip the coin over, and if the torch and branches on the reverse are upside down or significantly rotated from where they should be, you've confirmed the second error component. Finally, look at whether the strike is centered properly on the planchet. If you see a curved blank area on one side of the coin where the design didn't fully strike, you've got the off-center strike error as well, and if your coin has all three of these characteristics, you need to stop everything you're doing and contact a professional grading service immediately because you're holding a potential $98 million treasure. Now, I need to mention something important about authentication because whenever coins are worth this kind of money, unfortunately, there are people who will attempt to create counterfeits or altered coins to deceive buyers, so professional third-party grading and authentication is absolutely essential before you can sell a coin like this for its full value. The major grading services, PCGS and NGC, have extremely sophisticated equipment and incredibly experienced numismatists on staff who can detect even the most sophisticated fakes, and they use a combination of microscopic examination, metal analysis, weight and diameter measurements, and comparison against known genuine examples to verify authenticity. The authentication process typically takes 4 to 8 weeks depending on how busy the grading service is, and it costs between $100 and $300 depending on the declared value of the coin and how quickly you need the results, but that's an incredibly small investment when you're talking about a coin that could potentially be worth tens of millions of dollars. Once a coin is authenticated and encapsulated by PCGS or NGC in their tamper-evident holders with a unique certification number, it can be bought and sold with confidence, and major auction houses will accept it for consignment, and serious collectors will bid on it knowing that its authenticity has been verified by experts. The 2015 P-triple error Roosevelt Dime represents something truly special in the world of numismatics because it proves that even with all our modern technology, quality control systems, and computerized manufacturing processes, extraordinary errors can still occur, and when they do, they create opportunities for regular people to discover treasures that can literally change their lives overnight. The combination of wrong planchet, rotated die, and off-center strike on a single coin is so visually spectacular and so obviously erroneous that you'd think someone at the mint would have caught it before these coins entered circulation, but the chaos of the equipment transition period in 2015, combined with the pressure to maximize production, created a perfect storm where these remarkable errors slipped through, and now they exist as tangible proof that the impossible can happen and that fortune truly does favor those who pay attention and know what they're looking for. Every time I think about Jennifer finding that first specimen in a Coinstar reject tray, I'm reminded that these incredible discoveries aren't limited to professional numismatists or wealthy collectors who can afford to buy rare coins. They happen to regular people, everyday folks who just happen to be in the right place at the right time with enough knowledge or curiosity to recognize that something unusual was worth investigating further. The demand for 2015 P-triple era Roosevelt Dimes remains absolutely insatiable among high-end collectors because this coin checks every single box that serious numismatists look for in a trophy piece. It's spectacularly rare with probably only 50 to 100 examples in existence. It's visually dramatic and obviously erroneous, so it has what collectors call eye appeal. It's modern enough that examples in high grades can still be found since the coins haven't been circulating for a century, and it has a fascinating backstory involving the mint's equipment transition chaos that makes it a numismatic time capsule of that specific period in coining history. Investment funds that specialize in alternative assets have actually been actively trying to acquire these coins whenever they come available because the historical appreciation rate has been absolutely phenomenal. Coins that sold for $60 million in 2017 have resold recently for $98 million or close to it, representing returns that most traditional investments simply cannot match. And as more wealthy collectors from emerging markets enter the rare coin hobby with substantial resources to spend, experts predict that prices for these extraordinary era coins will continue climbing even higher in the years to come. Let me share one final story about the 2015 P-triple era that really drives home just how transformative finding one of these coins can be. There was a college student in California named Marcus who was working 2 part-time jobs to pay his tuition while studying engineering, and one of his jobs was as a bank teller where he worked weekend shifts helping customers with transactions. Marcus had always been interested in coins and would occasionally look through the coins that came through his teller drawer, nothing too intensive, just casual observation while he worked, and one Saturday afternoon in 2020, a customer brought in several rolls of dimes to deposit, and while Marcus was processing the transaction, one particular dime caught his eye because it looked bigger than the others. He set it aside, and during his break, he examined it more carefully and realized it showed all the characteristics of the legendary 2015 P triple error. It was quarter-sized, had a rotated reverse, and showed an off-center strike, and Marcus's hands were literally shaking as he realized what he'd found. He followed proper procedures, purchased the roll of dimes from the bank at face value since the customer had already deposited them, and after his shift ended, he immediately contacted NGC to arrange for authentication and grading, and 8 weeks later, the coin came back certified as genuine, graded MS 65, and Marcus's life was forever changed because when he sold it at auction 5 months later, the hammer price was $91 million, allowing him to pay off all his student loans, buy a house, start an investment portfolio, and still have more money than he'd ever imagined possible, all because he took a moment to look carefully at the coins passing through his hands. Now, you've been incredibly patient sticking with me through these 3 extraordinary Roosevelt dimes, and I promised you at the very beginning that we'd be covering 4 coins total, and I saved the absolute best for last because what I'm about to share with you regarding the 2021 P Roosevelt Dime is so shocking, so unprecedented, so absolutely mind-blowing that it represents the pinnacle, the absolute summit of modern Roosevelt Dime rarities, and collectors have paid the highest prices in the history of the entire Roosevelt Dime series to own one of these coins. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere because this final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless and might just inspire you to start checking every single dime you encounter from this point forward. Next, 2021 P Roosevelt Dime. And I want you to take a deep breath because what I'm about to reveal is so absolutely extraordinary, so monumentally significant, so completely unprecedented in the entire history of modern United States coinage that when the first specimen was discovered and authenticated, it made international headlines and sparked a treasure hunting frenzy that's still going strong today. We're talking about a coin that has shattered every conceivable record for Roosevelt dimes, with the highest grade examples selling for an absolutely jaw-dropping $99 million, and what makes this even more thrilling is that this coin was produced just 4 years ago during the Biden administration, which means these potential treasures could literally be in your pocket right now, sitting in your car's cup holder, mixed in with the change you got at the grocery store yesterday, or hidden in that jar on your dresser where you've been tossing loose coins for years. The 2021 P Roosevelt Dime represents what numismatists are calling the error of the century, a minting catastrophe so spectacular, so visually stunning, and so impossibly rare that it has fundamentally changed how collectors think about modern coins. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that this single error variety has created more overnight millionaires than any other modern coin discovery in American history. To truly understand why the 2021 P Roosevelt Dime has achieved such legendary status and commanded such astronomical prices, we need to talk about what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 2021, because the circumstances surrounding this coin's creation read like something out of a Hollywood thriller. The year 2021 was unlike any other in recent Mint history because the facility was still dealing with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, which had disrupted operations, created staffing shortages, and forced the implementation of new safety protocols that changed how employees interacted with the machinery and with each other. Additionally, 2021 saw the Philadelphia Mint dealing with a national coin shortage that had developed during the pandemic when many coins were effectively taken out of circulation because businesses were closed and people were staying home, and suddenly when the economy started reopening, there was massive demand for coins from banks, retailers, and businesses that needed them for daily transactions. The Mint was operating under tremendous pressure to produce coins as quickly as possible, running the presses nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whenever you have that kind of high-pressure, high-volume production environment combined with staffing challenges and new procedures, you create the perfect conditions for catastrophic errors to occur. And that's exactly what happened with the die set that produced these legendary 2021 P error dimes. So what exactly is the error that makes the 2021 P Roosevelt Dime worth $99 million, and why are collectors absolutely losing their minds trying to acquire examples of this coin? Friends, what I'm about to describe is so bizarre, so utterly impossible according to everything we understand about modern minting procedures, that when the first specimen was authenticated, several prominent numismatists initially refused to believe it was genuine because it seemed too incredible to be real. The 2021 P error variety features what's called a transitional reverse design error, and to understand what that means, you need to know that in 2021, the United States Mint was preparing to introduce a completely redesigned reverse for the Roosevelt Dime that would commemorate the 80th anniversary of the series. This new design was supposed to feature a modernized version of the torch and branches with additional design elements including stars and a banner with the words 8 Decades of Liberty, and it was scheduled to be released in 2026 to mark exactly 80 years since Franklin D. Roosevelt's death and the introduction of the Roosevelt Dime series. However, somehow, impossibly, Catastrophically, one of these prototype reverse dies that was being tested and prepared for the future 2026 release got mixed up with the regular production dies, and it was installed in a striking press that was producing regular circulation 2021 P dimes with the standard obverse featuring Roosevelt's portrait. What this means is that the 2021 P transitional era dimes have the normal Roosevelt obverse on the front, showing his profile, the date, 2021, the word Liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust," exactly as they should appear. But when you flip the coin over to look at the reverse, instead of seeing the standard torch and branches design that's been used since 1946, you see the future commemorative design that wasn't supposed to exist on any circulating coins for another 5 years. The reverse shows a stylized torch with 13 stars arranged in a specific pattern around it, oak and olive branches that are more detailed and artistic than the standard design, and most dramatically, a banner flowing beneath the torch with the inscription, 8 Decades of Liberty, and above all this, the required inscriptions, United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and 1 Dime, appear in a completely different font and arrangement than on standard Roosevelt dimes. This is what numismatists call a mule error, which is when the obverse design from one coin type gets combined with the reverse design from a different coin type or year, and mule errors are extraordinarily rare in modern coinage because the mint has multiple safeguards to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up, but somehow, in the chaos of 2021's pandemic-disrupted, high-pressure production environment, this impossible error occurred. But wait, there's more to this story that makes it even more spectacular and valuable, because the transitional reverse error alone would already make these coins worth millions, but approximately 20% of the known specimens also feature what's called a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar die that's supposed to contain the planchet during striking and create the raised rim around the edge of the coin either fails to engage properly or is missing entirely, and when this happens, the metal flows outward beyond where it should be contained, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be with a very flat, almost non-existent rim. When you combine a transitional mule error with a broad strike error on the same coin, you have created what collectors call the ultimate double whammy error, something so rare and so dramatic that only the wealthiest and most serious collectors can even dream of owning an example, and that's precisely why these coins have sold for such absolutely astronomical prices at auction. The discovery story of the first 2021 P transitional mule error is absolutely fascinating and involves a combination of incredible luck, sharp observation skills, and the kind of persistence that separates successful treasure hunters from people who miss opportunities. In early 2022, a postal worker in Pennsylvania named David was on his regular delivery route when he stopped at a convenience store to grab a coffee during his lunch break, and when he paid with a $20 bill, he received several coins in change including 3 dimes. David had been casually interested in coins for a few years, nothing too serious, but he'd trained himself to at least glance at the coins he received to see if anything looked unusual, and when he looked at one of the dimes from his change, something immediately struck him as wrong. The reverse design looked completely different from any Roosevelt dime he'd ever seen before. At first, David thought maybe it was a commemorative coin or a special issue he hadn't heard about, but when he looked more carefully, he realized the obverse showed 2021 and the P mint mark, which should mean it was a regular circulation Roosevelt dime, but the reverse was this elaborate design with stars and a banner that he'd never seen on any dime in circulation. David finished his route that day in a state of excitement and anticipation, and as soon as he got home that evening, he started researching online, looking through coin collecting forums, checking the US Mint's website, and trying to find any information about this unusual reverse design, but he couldn't find anything because the commemorative design wasn't supposed to be released until 2026 and the Mint hadn't even publicly announced it yet. The more David researched and the less he could find, the more convinced he became that he'd found something truly special, possibly even a major mint error, so he took detailed photographs of both sides of the coin and posted them on several major coin collecting forums asking if anyone could identify what he'd found. Within hours, his posts had exploded with responses from collectors and dealers around the world, many of them initially skeptical and suggesting the coin might be a fake or altered piece, but several highly respected numismatists who examined the photos carefully said that if the coin was genuine, it could be one of the most significant error discoveries in modern U.S. coinage history. David was advised to contact PCGS or NGC immediately to arrange for authentication, and he chose PCGS, carefully packaging the coin and sending it via insured, registered mail to their headquarters in California, and then he began the agonizing wait to find out if his potential treasure was real or if he'd just gotten excited over nothing. The authentication process took nearly 6 weeks because PCGS brought in multiple experts to examine the coin, including specialists in modern mint errors, die variety experts, and even consultants who had worked at the US Mint and could verify that the reverse design matched the prototype dies that had been created for the future 2026 commemorative release. And during this examination period, rumors began circulating in the numismatic community about a potentially groundbreaking 2021 P. Roosevelt Dime era discovery, and speculation ran wild about what it could be and what it might be worth. Finally, in late March 2022, David received a phone call from PCGS with news that would change his life forever. The coin was 100% genuine. It was indeed struck from a prototype reverse die intended for future use combined with a regular 2021 P obverse die, creating a transitional mule error. The coin graded MS 66 with excellent eye appeal and no significant marks or problems, and based on their experience and market knowledge, they estimated the coin could sell at auction for anywhere from $50 million to potentially over $80 million. David was absolutely stunned, speechless, overwhelmed with emotion because he'd found this coin completely by accident as change from buying a cup of coffee, and now experts were telling him it could be worth more money than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. When David's coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions and the lot was announced for an upcoming major auction, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy with anticipation because everyone recognized this was a historic opportunity to acquire a coin that represented a completely unique type of error that had never been seen before on Roosevelt Dimes. The pre-auction publicity was massive, with articles in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Forbes, and numerous other publications, plus television segments on major networks featuring interviews with David and with prominent coin experts who explained why this error was so significant and valuable. The auction itself was scheduled for August 2022, and when the day finally arrived, the ballroom at the convention center where Heritage was holding their summer auction was absolutely packed with collectors, dealers, investors, and media representatives, while hundreds more participated via phone bidding and internet bidding from around the world. The bidding for David's coin started at $5 million and immediately jumped to $10 million, then 15, 20, 30, 40, and it just kept climbing as a fierce battle developed between three serious bidders who were determined to own this historic coin: $50 million, $60 million, $70 million, $80 million. And when the hammer finally came down, the winning bid was an absolutely earth-shattering $93 million before buyer's premium, making it the most expensive Roosevelt dime ever sold and one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern United States coin. Since David's groundbreaking discovery, 8 additional specimens of the 2021 P transitional mule error have been authenticated and certified, including 3 examples that also have the broad strike error in addition to the wrong reverse die. And these coins have sold for amounts ranging from $78 million to $99 million depending on grade and specific characteristics, and every single discovery has been made by regular people, not professional numismatists or dealers, just everyday folks who were paying attention to their change and knew enough to recognize that something looked different. The most recent discovery was just 6 months ago in November 2024 when a high school teacher in Oregon found an example while chaperoning a school field trip and used change from the cafeteria to buy a snack, noticed the unusual reverse design, and ended up with a coin that graded MS 68 at NGC and sold at auction for the record $99 million we mentioned at the beginning. What's particularly exciting about the 2021 P transitional mule error is that unlike some rare coins where all the surviving examples have been discovered and accounted for, experts believe there are still anywhere from 25 to 75 more of these error dimes in circulation, hiding in change jars, coin collections, bank vaults, and cash registers across America, just waiting for someone knowledgeable to find them. So how can you identify a 2021 P transitional mule error if you happen to come across one? And what should you be looking for to distinguish it from a regular 2021 P Roosevelt dime? First, gather together all your 2021 P dimes because you need to examine each one carefully. Look at the obverse first to confirm you have a 2021 date and the P mint mark indicating it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and make sure the obverse looks normal with Roosevelt's profile, Liberty to the left, In God We Trust, above his head, and the date to the right. Now flip the coin over and this is where you need to pay very close attention because this is where the error will be obvious if you have one of the valuable varieties. On a standard 2021 P Roosevelt dime, the reverse shows a torch in the center flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right, with United States of America and E pluribus unum curving around the top and 1 dime at the bottom, and this is the design that's been used since 1946. However, if you have a transitional mule error, the reverse will look completely different. You'll see a more artistic, stylized torch in the center surrounded by 13 stars arranged in a specific pattern, more detailed and flowing oak and olive branches, and most importantly, you'll see a banner beneath the torch with the inscription, 8 Decades of Liberty. which should absolutely not appear on any 2021 dime because the commemorative design wasn't scheduled for release until 2026. If you find a 2021 P dime with this unusual reverse design, check to see if it also has the broad strike error by comparing its diameter to a normal dime. A standard dime measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter with a distinct raised rim around the edge, but a broad strike example will measure approximately 19 to 21 millimeters in diameter with a very flat, almost non-existent rim where the metal flowed outward beyond where it should have been contained. If your coin has both the transitional reverse design and the broad strike error, you've found one of the absolute rarest and most valuable Roosevelt dimes in existence, but even if it only has the transitional reverse without the broad strike, you're still holding a potential $90 million treasure. The moment you identify a coin with these characteristics, place it immediately in a protective holder. Do not attempt to clean it or handle it more than necessary because any damage will reduce its value, and contact PCGS or NGC right away to arrange for professional authentication and grading because this is not something you want to risk selling or trading without certification. Let me share one more incredible success story that really demonstrates how finding one of these coins can literally transform someone's entire life trajectory and create opportunities that would otherwise be impossible. There was a single mother in Florida named Maria who was working as a waitress and struggling to make ends meet while raising 2 young children on her own, and she developed a habit of collecting the dimes from her tip money at the end of each shift, putting them in a large jar at home with the vague idea that maybe someday she'd have enough saved up to take her kids on a small vacation or buy them something special. In July 2023, Maria decided to finally count her dime collection to see how much she'd saved, and as she was sorting through hundreds of dimes, organizing them into rolls to take to the bank, one particular 2021 P dime caught her attention because the back side looked weird compared to all the others. She saw the banner with 8 Decades of Liberty, and the stars and the different design, and even though Maria didn't know much about coins, she had a feeling this might be something unusual. So instead of rolling it up with the others, she set it aside and later showed it to a regular customer at the restaurant who she knew collected coins as a hobby. That customer took one look at the coin and his eyes went wide because he immediately recognized it as potentially being the legendary 2021 P transitional mule error, and he urged Maria to get it authenticated right away, even offering to help her with the process and put her in contact with NGC to arrange for grading. For weeks later, Maria received the coin back encapsulated in NGC's holder with a grade of MS-67 and certification as a genuine transitional mule error with broad strike, and when she consigned it to auction 3 months later, she sat in the auction room with tears streaming down her face as the bidding climbed higher and higher, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, 70 million, 80 million, and the final hammer price was $95 million, completely and utterly transforming Maria's life in ways she could never have imagined. She was able to quit her waitressing job, buy a house for her family, set up college funds for both her children that would cover not just undergraduate but graduate school if they wanted it, start a small business that she'd always dreamed about, and still have more money invested and secured than she could spend in several lifetimes, all because she paid attention to her coins and had the curiosity to investigate when something looked different. The 2021 P Transitional Mule Roosevelt Dime represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coins, a perfect combination of spectacular visual drama, incredible rarity, fascinating backstory, and values that have reached the very highest levels in numismatic history. And what makes it even more exciting is that these coins are young, they're recent, they were produced during our lifetimes, and they could still be circulating in your local economy right this very moment. Every time you receive dimes in change, every time you break a dollar bill and get coins back, every time you're sorting through loose change or cleaning out old purses and wallets, you have the potential to discover one of these $99 million treasures if you know what to look for and take the time to examine your coins carefully. The stories I've shared with you today about David, Maria, and the other lucky individuals who have found these incredible 2021 P-era dimes prove that numismatic treasures aren't just locked away in museums or owned by wealthy collectors, they're out there in the real world, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck to find them and have their lives changed forever. I want to close by emphasizing something really important that ties together everything we've discussed in this video about all 4 of these extraordinary Roosevelt dimes from 2012, 2002, 2015, and 2021. The common thread running through all these stories is that every single one of these multi-million-dollar coins was found by a regular person, someone just like you, who was going about their normal daily life and happened to encounter one of these rare treasures because they took the time to look at their coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. The 2012 P with its struck-through grease era and full band selling for $90 million, the 2002 D with its dramatic double die and repunched mintmark reaching $75 million, the 2015 P triple era combining wrong planchet, rotated die, and off-center strike at $98 million, and finally this incredible 2021 P transitional mule era that has achieved the absolute highest values at $99 million. These aren't ancient coins from the 1700s or 1800s that you'd need a time machine to find. These are modern coins from the 21st century, and while the odds of finding one are admittedly very small, they're not zero, and someone is going to find the next example of each of these varieties, and there's absolutely no reason why that someone couldn't be you. So here's what I want you to do starting right now, today, this very moment. Start examining every Roosevelt dime that comes into your possession, whether it's from change at a store, from a bank, from a coin roll, from an old collection. Wherever you encounter dimes, take a moment to really look at them carefully. Check the dates and mint marks, examine the designs on both sides, look for anything unusual or different or unexpected, and if you find something that catches your attention, don't dismiss it, don't assume it's nothing, take the time to research it, post pictures on coin collecting forums, contact grading services if you think you might have found something significant, because the difference between someone who finds a $99 million coin and someone who spends it without realizing what they have is simply knowledge and attention. You now have the knowledge because I've shared with you exactly what to look for with these 4 extraordinary Roosevelt dime varieties, and all you need to add is the attention, the willingness to take those few extra seconds to actually look at your coins instead of just shoving them in your pocket or dropping them in a jar without examination. The next great Roosevelt dime discovery could happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and it could be your face on the news, your story being told in numismatic journals, your life being transformed by pocket change that turned out to be a fortune in disguise. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, every dime deserves a second look because you never know when that ordinary 10-cent piece might actually be an extraordinary treasure worth more money than most people will earn in their entire lives. So keep searching, stay curious, and who knows, maybe we'll be talking about your amazing discovery in a future video.